Hello, this will be a brief overview of the Sage Fixed Assets solution. I will cover the components of the Sage Fixed Asset solution as well as provide a brief overview of each module. The following are the components that make up the complete Sage Fixed Asset solution. These components allow you to manage your fixed assets through their complete life cycle. The planning module will be used to be able to handle any type of CIP or projects or work in progress that will result in assets being placed in service in the depreciation module. You will be able to capture all realized costs from purchase orders, accounts payable, or any other costs rolling up into the final cost of a particular item that will then need to be placed in service. And because of the integration between the modules, you will be able to send assets directly to the depreciation module in order to start depreciation. Now, the depreciation module will handle all of your depreciation calculations for federal, state, AMT, or ACE books, as well as for GAAP or your internal book. The depreciation module will also handle other transactions such as disposals or transfers, as well as excellent reporting capability. The tracking module will handle being able to do physical inventories of your fixed assets to ensure all of your assets are in place where they actually should be. The custom reporting feature includes a fully integrated version of SAP Crystal Reports. So in addition to the standard robust reporting built into the solution, the custom reporting feature will give you the ability to build any type of ad hoc reports that you need. Let's first start off with the planning module, where you can handle construction in progress type projects or work in progress that will result in assets being created that need to be placed in service. This planning module will give you a quick overview of what's going on with your spend within a particular project. As displayed here in this project snapshot, you can see what's spent or unspent of the budget, what's capitalized, what's expensed, and you actually can track your spending against both an original budget as well as a revised budget. Each of these individual line items will have their own cost below the line item level, but each of these individual line items are items that can then be sent to be placed in service in the depreciation module. So looking at this line item detail, for example, you'll have a series of fields that are customizable. You will also have an original budget for this particular line item, as well as the ability to create a revised budget. Now, your total spend coming from purchase orders for materials, labor, whatever the case may be, will all roll up against the budget for that particular line item. So once spending is complete on this particular line item, you can actually tell it that spending is complete, set a completion date, provide a place in service date, and you can even split a single line item into multiple assets of equal or different values. Once spending is complete, you're able to simply select Create Assets, and any item that spending is complete, you're then able to select. You can either select individually or use a control key or select a couple, or you can simply select all and send those items to be created in the depreciation module where depreciation can begin. There's also robust reporting included here where you can actually see multiple projects, what your spend is against budget, in either subtotals only or in full details. So for example, I'm running this consolidated report to show me 3 of my projects where I can easily see the budget for that project, my actual spend, and whether I'm over or under budget for each of those projects. I can also drill down and look at the individual details where I can see, for example, this line item is $69,000 over budget. This one is $78.48 over budget. This one is $45,000 over budget, but I'm under my overall budget for that particular project. Once items are sent to the depreciation module to be placed in service, if you incorporate using a template, it will provide all the information needed for that item to actually start depreciation. So let's have a quick look at the depreciation module to look at some things that have been sent and placed in service in the depreciation module. The depreciation module also has the ability to show you a quick overview with what's going on with all of the assets in any particular company you're in. You can see what's placed in service by quarter, a quick look at the depreciation comparison, even look at your 5-year spend, as well as a breakdown of investment by remaining life. And this information can be viewed by any of the books. So let's take a look at some assets that were placed in service sent from the planning module. It will create a group or an entry that will state the date and time, and any assets that were sent at that date and time will show up in that group. Now, because I also used a template when sending this over, it populated any information, any files that I mapped from the planning module to the depreciation module. And by using a template, that also populates automatically property type, depreciation method, as well as estimated life for all of the books that I have active. So this item, when sent from the planning module, came over ready to start depreciation with no additional action needed. Now, let's take a look overall at the depreciation module. This will give you the ability to calculate depreciation for federal tax, internal book or GAAP, state, AMT, ACE, as well as 2 custom books. It does support things like bonus depreciation, as well as Section 179, and has all of the updated tax rules built in. You can conduct transactions such as disposals or transfers, which will be captured here on the Transactions tab. There's an area you can add notes, and also you can attach images or invoices, file types such as PDFs, JPEGs, bitmap, and GIF files. And you can link a single image or invoice to multiple assets quite easily in the solution. So for example, if I ordered multiple iPads on a single invoice, I can easily link that invoice to all of those assets. In this particular asset, I have an image attached as well as an invoice of the assets, both attached. You can view or print either the image or invoice quite easily in the solution. It easily handles transactions such as disposal, be it full or partial, so I can easily dispose of an asset. I can do either sale, abandonment, taxable exchange, casualty, like-kind exchange, or involuntary conversion type disposals, and I can do full or partial disposals. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick example of a disposal where I'm going to go ahead and populate some cash proceeds as well as some expense of sale, and simply hit calculate to calculate my disposal information. Now, if you notice on this particular asset, I am doing bonus depreciation for tax, straight line for GAAP, And since I'm taking 100% bonus, my current net book value is 0. My internal book net book value is 2409, so the resulting gain loss is easily calculated. I can also preview the worksheet. So if in your particular scenario you are taking bonus depreciation or Section 179, you will see that 168 or 179 recapture information will also be calculated here. I can simply go ahead and say OK and complete my disposal, which takes me to the Transactions tab where I can quickly reference any information regarding that transaction. Or I can actually pull up the actual transaction or view the worksheet as well. Since this asset is fully disposed, you'll see the asset has changed status to disposed. All of my book fields are grayed out because this asset is now fully disposed. If you go to the History tab, which captures all activities with your assets, you'll see the asset was disposed, and it also will show any other financial changes, such as your cash proceeds or expense of sale information are all captured here. Now, transactions such as disposals or transfers can easily be reversed by going back to the Transactions tab, selecting Delete Last Transaction, and everything will go back to its previous values. And the Transactions tab will not erase the previous information, will simply capture the fact that it was reversed, when it was done, and who did it. Now, you can also easily create groups, so you can view your assets by location, by department, or any other information you choose, so that you can report on any subset as well as easily access information based on location or any other parameters you deem. There are 28 customizable fields. Each of these fields can be renamed to anything you choose simply by typing in the display name that you choose for that location. Now, your standard fields will handle 25 characters. Your description field will take 80, and fields such as your GL account field will handle 100 characters. The solution also has some great tools built in to easily make changes en masse. So, for example, you can change your bonus percentage on the fly. If, for example, you have some assets placed in service, you're only taking 50% bonus, you can make that change to a large group or even across all your assets using this 168 allowance switch, and I can simply select all my assets or any subsets based on groups that I created for any books. I can also turn bonus off and on quite easily. I also have the ability to make a mid-quarter convention switch if, for example, I do exceed 40% of the assets being placed in service in Q4. I can simply go to the Maker's Convention switch and change from a half year to a mid-quarter convention. I also have the ability to make mass changes to depreciation methods and estimated life across any group of assets, including all of the assets. I can change either depreciation method from anything specific to something else, and I can also change estimated life. This also has some validation built in. I do have the option of selecting when I want to make the changes effective. So if, for example, I simply want to make the change from my current depreciation through date going forward, or I can also go back to the placed in service date. So it gives you quite a bit of flexibility. There is also an Audit Advisor built in. And since we do have all of the tax rule built in, this tool will help by identifying any issue that is a potential red flag for you to get audited. You can run it for any fiscal, and it will generate an exception if you do have any conditions that are a potential issue. So in this particular scenario, you'll see an exception was created because I am exceeding the limit for that fiscal year. It will identify the issue. It will also recommend a resolution. So in this case, the limit for fiscal 2018 for Section 179 was $1 million. However, in my sample database, I am actually trying to take more than 5 times the 179 allowance. Now, this actually identifies a group that is created so that any asset that is triggering that exception will show up in that group. I do have some other issues here, but for the purpose of this exercise, I'm simply going to focus on the Section 179 issue. So I can simply go back to my list view, select that group that was created, and these are all of the assets that are triggering that exception. If you look at these assets individually, I'm taking less than the 1 million limit for my 179 deduction. I'm taking 700,000 on this asset, another 700,000 here. So combined, I'm exceeding that limit. So I can now make that correction to ensure that I'm not exceeding the Section 179 listing limit for that fiscal. There's also some great reporting built into the solution. So for example, I can run an actual fileable 4562 that will actually generate the fileable 4562 as well as the worksheet for that. You will have both pages of the 4562. And all the reports are exportable to multiple formats. This is the schedule that would go along with that 4562, and all are exportable to multiple formats such as Crystal Reports, PDF, CSV format, or standard Excel or Excel data only, as well as several other options. Sale of property report is also a standard report in the solution. And this report will break your property down by the correct section property. As you can see here, my 1245, 1250 property and so on. It will also capture all of your ordinary gain losses on page 2. And again, this report can be easily exported. There's also a tax expense report, which can be used to reconcile your 4562. And there are many standard reports built in, such as depreciation expense report, roll forward reports, AMT reports, even projection reports that you're able to look at future year depreciation. My depreciation expense report, for example, will show my prior depreciation through date as well as my current depreciation through date. So in my case, my depreciation this run is looking at 1 month's depreciation, and it will have all of the totals on the last page. Reports can also be customized. You can change the sort order up to 3 layers deep, so I can sort and subtotal this by any of the fields such as location, GL account, and so on. I also have the ability to add or remove columns of data in many of the reports. Now let's take a brief look at the tracking module, which will be used for physical inventories of your fixed assets. The tracking module uses the same database as the depreciation module and is therefore fully integrated. However, users using the tracking module will not be able to access any book fields. So since this module's primary focus is for doing physical inventories, there's no need for users using the tracking module to actually access any book fields. They will have access to all of the 28 general information fields, and in addition, we'll have 12 additional fields available here where they can capture any other information they choose. Any images that are attached will also be here, as well as invoices, since it is actually sharing the same database. You can easily generate an inventory list where you can send that out to either a traditional scanner or to an Android app where you're able to go out, use the camera. In the case of the Android app, use the camera on the phone or tablet, scan the barcode where you can actually update any information that was changed and be able to send that data back to the system, where you can then reconcile and accept any changes. You also have the ability to add assets from the side while doing an inventory. You can even take a picture of the asset, and you can work on multiple inventory lists at once. For supported barcodes, it'll use the standard barcode 39 format, so you can order a variety of types of labels, which you can then attach to your assets, so that when you're doing an inventory, you simply can't scan that barcode, which will correspond to an asset ID number, which is the asset ID number displayed in the asset ID field of your fixed assets. Once an inventory has been completed, you will then have the ability to accept any changes. Once those changes are applied, those changes will update fields both in the tracking module as well as in the depreciation module. You will also have the ability to run a reconciliation report, which will identify any assets that were not found during that process. Now, for example, in this sample report, it's identifying these assets as not found with a status code of N. So these would be what we call ghost assets. They're on your registry, but they're either lost or stolen or otherwise unusable, and therefore not found during that inventory process. These assets that are missing or not found do have significant cost impacts to your business, because you're actually paying taxes and insurance on these assets that are not in service. It also identifies any assets found with no changes during the inventory, as well as any assets found with changes. But of course, the primary importance here is identifying assets that are actually missing.